Welcome, everyone. We're at it again. The reptilian Illuminati of greed, hatred, delusion, non-practical, complicated thinking are trying to control you, trying to control this world, are trying to build a new world order or a kind of continuous world order of greed, hate, and delusion. I'm not going to let that happen. And it's up to us as truth seekers and us as the meditation army, the monk life meditation army brigade, to do our best to face reality, the truth of the reptilian Illuminati new world order that's trying to take over right at this very instant, right at this very moment, trying to take over Namarupa, trying to obscure the truth of anatta, dukkha, anicca, no self, impermanence, and dukkha, suffering or unsatisfactoriness. Now, what does it take to defeat these Illuminati reptiles? What does it take? What do we have to do? We have to be ready to go beyond the intellect on this, because the intellect, the conceptual thinking, the complicated thinking, the memorization, the kind of reasoning that we are used to, thinking about things and making decisions and finding out if this is right for us or not, that's not really going to work. Because primarily we have to be brave enough to shift the gear into stopping, the stopping mind. The stopping mind is the mind of detachment. Because if we don't attach to something, if we don't grasp onto something, if we don't believe to something, then it doesn't perpetuate itself. We don't get involved with that, right? So for example, if we don't get attached to the idea of going for a walk, we're probably not going to go for a walk. If we are attached to the idea of, I am someone that drinks soda, or I am someone that needs this at this time, then that's how we will act. And we will perpetuate, kind of fall into these cyclic experiences of trying to get what we want, not being satisfied, trying to avoid what we want to avoid, not being satisfied with that result. So the path of Buddhism is it's simple. It's simple and it has a lot of efficacy. It has a lot of practicality to it. But it's not anything if you don't, it's like you push your heart into it. You're willing to go into the fire of it, the reality of Buddhism, whatever that may be. You have to find out through your experience. For example, we can watch MMA on TV, or we can know about conceptually like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or mixed martial arts or all these different kinds of things. But until we go into a mixed martial arts gym, until we step into a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu palling around, we don't really know what that's like because we don't have an experience of it and with it. So the theory, the conceptuality, the kind of ego, Buddhist ego building is it's not the best way to go about it. We should detach from ourselves. We should detach, we should abandon the idea we have about the story of our life. You are a carpenter, you are a husband, you are a wife, you are a business person, you are a monk, you are a teacher, you are a student. We should be able to be mindful enough to be aware of that identification, and then we should abandon that. We should to detach from that idea about ourselves. The idea of being someone, because what is being someone if not an idea? What is an idea if not words and phrases that are grasped onto mentally? If you take the words and phrases out of it, what is it? Magic robots interacting and kind of visual data or auditorial data? It doesn't work without these words and phrases. So what is a life that doesn't rely on words and phrases? What is an experience that doesn't rely on conceptual thinking? Is it that inaccessible? Is it that obscure? An experience that doesn't rely on conceptual thinking? The Buddha taught one method, for example, breathing in, know that you're breathing in. Breathing out, know that you're breathing out. Now, in doing that, what's the deal? What's the story? What's the situation? Who are you? Does any of that apply? Do you need a story about yourself to practice mindfulness and detachment? Or do you need to get rid of a story about yourself to practice mindfulness and detachment? The answer is no to both of those. Mindfulness and detachment is a natural state. Just in the same way that seeing without conceptual thinking, seeing without complicated thought, seeing without effort is a natural state. Feel loss. Detach from loss. Detach from someone losing something. The fixation, the grasping, the attachment, the identification with someone who loses something is at the root of suffering. Just in the same way that the happiness or the joy or the pleasure that goes with the identification with someone that gains something is the root of suffering. It is to be detached from. So when we experience great loss, it is a messenger of the truth, a holy messenger, a messenger that can help us to get to Nibbana much more quickly. When we experience great loss, it is a holy messenger, impermanence, no self. No self means no true story. How about that? Know someone. What is a story without someone? Whether it's an animal someone or a earthenware someone or what have you. No self means no true story. And this is a realm. The realm of truth is the realm of no true story, no true someone. Excuse me. So when we experience great loss, that is a time for great detachment. Just in the same way that when we experience great gain, that is a time for great generosity. When we practice to detach when experiencing loss, and to be generous when experiencing gain, and we do this limitlessly, and we stay with our precepts, and we integrate meditation practice with this, that is when the magic happens. That's where the juice is. That's where the coconut and mango trees that were raised, that were fed on human feces, okay, humanure, that's where those trees are. So we have to be brave enough and serious enough about our truth seeking, our spiritual life, our spiritual practice, not to grit our teeth and meditate and think our way through, fight our way through, but to practice dana, to practice giving, to practice this generosity of heart, generosity of body, generosity of mind. We don't have a culture in America, we don't have a culture that teaches us about that. And it means that we miss out on many, many opportunities to help, to serve, to bring benefit, to develop, because it gets into this situation where it's all about greed. The American dream is what? It's the dream of greed. And apparently, Canada also has this dream. They're having a political situation up there with Justin Trudeau. And Justin Trudeau was talking about, these wealthy people, they just want taxes for themselves, da 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 da. The other person responded back and said, look, man, you just took a 5-day political trip, whatever that was about. You spent $200,000 on food in 5 days. And then he listed through, these meals that he had, whatever. We have a broken system, a broken culture. American culture, Western culture is largely broken, especially in America, which is the #1 culture in the world. I can't speak much about China. They've got some good things going on in the Nordic system. I got to get over there. Come on. I mean, it's amazing. You hear about their prison systems and the way that they treat people and how they deal with drug legislation and all these different social policies. I remember a long time ago, I met someone online who was kind of a young man who had anxiety disorder, depression disorder, and he just had the government gave him an apartment and a stipend because he couldn't to deal with that outside world to manage for himself. So the point is that we need to recognize, like Kamala Harris would say, what do you think? You fell out of a coconut tree? No. You're from a coconut tree, and then you became a human, and now a coconut has fallen on your head, and you're walking around like this, all dizzied out. This American culture is your culture. It's the culture of your mind. It's the system in which your mind engages with the world. And that is a system of greediness, selfishness, individualism, isolationism. Okay? It's a system that doesn't support community building unless it's against something or against someone, unless there's money to be made in it. So instead of making the Buddhist path, and you can do it this way, but I'm offering some alternatives here. Instead of making the Buddhist path all about gritting your teeth to meditate and then developing this kind of Buddhist ego, this Buddhist philosophy, this Buddhist theory, start practicing generosity in big ways. Start considering about serving, volunteering, donating, helping, sharing, caring, supporting, concerned with the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. Seriously, think about what you can do in the vein of that. Because it just doesn't make sense to me, right? The Buddha set up this system where he said, okay, everybody who's really serious about this, even women, come and live with me, come and be a monk, wander around, live your life 100% like this, and we'll just beg for food because we're that serious about it. We'll just beg for everything that we need. And we won't deal with the world, we won't be business, we won't have families, all that. The Buddha was like that. He said, if you're that serious about it, do it like me. Follow me into the wilderness and wandering around. So that's what the Buddha said. That's what the Buddha set up. And then for lay people, he said, okay, I can teach you the theory, I can teach you practices, but, you take refuge in this community. You take refuge with people who are really serious about this. And then through that, temples were built, communities were built, organizations were built, so all these systems of practice and education and helping others was established. So why would we think to not approach it that way now, if we're that serious about it? If we look at America, okay, which has hundreds of millions of people, the wealthiest country in the world, tons of yoga studios, tons of meditation centers, right? Or that's what they call themselves, but I don't really know what's going on there. They don't seem to be very open to talk about what's going on or to collaborate. A lot of the times they do for themselves, they do for their group, they charge price for it. Do you know how many really Western Buddhist temples or monasteries we have in America, where people have an opportunity to go and live or volunteer or become a monk or a nun? We're talking about less than 10, something like that. So there's a lot of opportunities in this Buddhist path for it not just to be about this complicated theory that we can't understand or gritting our teeth and meditating, but really about community building, about building community through generosity, about engaging with our spiritual life, our practice life, by taking refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, and practicing generosity, practicing volunteering, practicing serving, and the problem that I think we have in America is that these words just don't hit. These words sound like concepts. And when you only have, maybe 10 Buddhist temples for Americans or for Westerners where they can go and ordain and all this kind of stuff in America, maybe it makes sense that it's obscure. But this is a practice path. This is a way that we can get to the point of realization. This is a way that we can be around people that are much more experienced than us on the path, instead of just always being around our peers who are kind of floundering. Serious realization takes what? It takes serious generosity. It takes serious sacrifice. It takes serious renunciation. You can't cheat it. You can't trick it. Okay? You can't trick the Buddha. You can't trick your own mind. And that generosity, it really gives, I found in myself, that generosity, it really gives an access point for community. It gives an access point for inspired, sustained practice that you're not otherwise going to find. This idea of watching YouTube videos, sitting down alone, gritting your teeth, trying to meditate and study, following some teacher kind of online, that's really not going to work. You've got to be there in a consistent, sustained way where your ego is not in control. So when we make use of generosity, and when we make use of the precepts, And we do that concerned with the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. And when we take these words to be important, because this is the path that the Buddha laid out for us, we extrapolate upon those words, we investigate those words, we contemplate about those words, we communicate about those words, we communicate about generosity, we communicate about following precepts, we communicate about bhavana, about practicing meditation seriously. We practice that together. Concerned with the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. And the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, we can't say that it's like another form of Christianity or another form of Islam or another form of Judaism. It's not that. And we also can't say it's a form of Hinduism in this kind of sense of a structure. But what we can say that it is, especially for the Western perspective or Western ideals, is that it is an alternative way of life. It's an alternative social position. It's an alternative social structure. And it doesn't need to be about higher or lower, just in the same way that the person who takes care of the legal things and the person who cooks for everybody, there's not a higher or lower in that. Different ways of service, different ways of practice, different ways of communication, different resources, right? A donor is not inherently higher than a volunteer. A monk is not inherently higher than a volunteer who cleans or helps out or serves or cooks. And yet there are these different ways of communication, these different ways of being in community. Buddhism offers that. And when we don't take the position of being a cultural appropriator, when we don't take the position of differentiation or picking and choosing when it comes to Buddhism, then we have to be open to the monastic path and the role that that has. And why is that role so important? Why is renunciation so important? Why is sacrificing the business life so important? Why is sacrificing the life of having sexual partners or wives or husbands, etc., so important? Why is this embodiment of renunciation and detachment so important? And to take it to that degree, not only for oneself, but for the community as a whole. Why is it so important to detach from all of your thoughts? To abandon your entire identity, to abandon your entire story right now. Insight-based meditation, not an exercise in more concentration or more relaxation, but mindfulness and detachment. Direct experiencing, direct looking. Can also be direct questioning. What is this? Can also be just a word, everything. Everything that is not something already, without saying it. Okay, Smiley Face has a question. Is everything about relationship with every action and thoughts and to always maintain balance? Maybe you can try to explain what you're asking there. But mindfulness continuously. Mindfulness moment after moment. And empowering that mindfulness or developing that mindfulness with detachment, with the power of the recognition of impermanence, for example. because if something is impermanent, you're not going to buy into that. You're not going to pursue that, right? As they say, all formations are impermanent. Detach from your thoughts, detach from your perceptions, your ideas about what you're doing, and just practice it. It's one of the very important reasons that we need a teacher and that we need an avenue for reliably detaching from or abandoning our own understanding. You know, most people's understanding is wrong. Most people's understanding is not correct. It's not in accords with the truth. It's not in accords with no self. It's not in accords with impermanence or interbeing, not in accords with suffering. So you should empathize with this quality, this mindset of not relying on your own understanding anymore. Rely on the direct experience of breathing, for example. Practice meditation. Rely on doing actions of generosity, donating, volunteering, performing service. Rely on the understanding of following precepts, following 5 precepts. And do that very seriously. That is more reliable than your own personal, egoic, conceptual understanding about what you're doing and what's going on, etc. We're too easy to quit. We're too easy to give up, to throw in the towel. And it's not our decision as much as it is as I spoke about at the very beginning of the stream, the reptilian Illuminati, the new world order, continuously new world, ever new and permanent natures. The world is new every moment. The reptilian Illuminati scheme, plan, project 2024, to abide by greed, anger, and delusion. To establish greed, anger, and delusion in oneself, in the way of practice, in the way of being. Watch out for that. There's always some justification. Oh, I can't meditate now. Oh, I can't follow the precepts now. Oh, I can't practice generosity now. Oh, I can't listen to a Dhamma talk now. Oh, I can't join a meditation retreat now. Who do you think that is? It's not you. It's the reptilian Illuminati controlling your brain with microchips. You see? So you have to break that spell. You have to break that control mechanism. You have to shatter that crust of following along with the lead of that microchip that the reptilians have implanted in all beings for endless eons. Beginningless greed, hate, and delusion. Technically, it's not even a microchip. It's not a thing. There's no such thing as a thing. There's no such person as someone. There's no such place as some place. These are all just kind of like empty words. Games of words and phrases. Games of grasping and the perpetuation of grasping. Right? So our practice is not so much to theorize or complicate or cognize or conceive about. But to come home to mindfulness, which is not about the breathing, but breathing is kind of the reminder for just being aware. And then let's see, let's try. So those thoughts, not to follow them, not to react to them. But sometimes that thought needs to play out, needs to process. So let it process. You don't need to identify with it. You don't need to grasp it. You don't need to fight with it. Just breathing that reminder of awareness that allows and that doesn't interfere, doesn't need to interfere, doesn't need to control. doesn't need to fix, doesn't need to be anyone, certainly doesn't need to be a particular someone. We're not really going anywhere, doing anything, developing anything, just sitting, breathing, just aware. The mind can produce wonderful thoughts. The mind can also produce difficult or worrisome thoughts. And try to experience and be aware of all those thoughts with mindfulness and detachment. Just aware, just breathing, and detachment that you don't get stuck, you don't get involved, you don't believe in, you don't worry about. Even if it's true or false, it doesn't matter. It's just to be mindful of only and to detach from only. Whatever way you see it, whatever way you feel it, whatever way it arises and processes, let it be that way. It doesn't need to be a different way. Not a good or a bad, it's just that way at that moment. Mindful of and not attached to, not stuck in. Just aware is enough. And watch for the sleepy or the foggy or the getting stuck or trying to do something. Just aware is enough. Instead of striving for an empty mind or a special meditation mind, you can see meditation as this opening of space, this opening of time for processing to take place. Just a space for noticing, a space for awareness, a space for mindfulness and detachment. Notice those big ideas that come up and exercise the detachment from that, the letting go from that, not identifying with that. The same with the small ideas or the small feelings that come up. Pain, pleasure, whatever it might be. Notice it and exercise, and actually it's a kind of noticing of that, exercising of the capacity to detach from that which is noticed. Whether it's big or small, it doesn't matter. You don't need to grasp it. You don't need to identify with it. You don't need to be. Just be. Just breathing and aware. Just mindful. Just detaching from those involvements, those tangles, those emotional reflections and refractions, those judgments, those interpretations, those justifications, those reifications of thoughts, of stories, of people, places, situations, experiences in the body or the mind, just to be mindful of only and just to detach from only. Moments by moments and breaths by breaths. Starting to feel that relaxation, make sure that your mindfulness, your presence, your awareness keeps up with that calm, relaxed state. Gently, not by force, bring the brightness of the mind to anything that has a dullness to it, darkness to it. Relax enough to let go of anything, everything. It can be surprising what we have a capacity to let go of. It can be surprising how completely our ego, our psychology, our self can change, can be restructured. Even if we aren't practicing mindfulness and detachment seriously or doing that kind of meditation, we can be mindful and we can be willing to detach. We can understand the importance, the specialness, the value of letting go, so that not everything has to be an ego game or a debate or who was right or who was wrong, but it can actually be an opportunity for both sides or any side to put down what has been picked up, to detach from being someone, at some place, in some situation, at some time. Okay, any questions? Not to focus too much on what we desire, focus more on what we have and how what we have is an opportunity to give, to help. And that this giving, this helping, this service is so rewarding and so meaningful, such a way to change our life right down to the core of the heart mind. Generosity as a principle, as a practice, is very, very powerful, very useful. So don't have shyness about using it. Actually, nobody has anything personally, but you may feel that you have something, that something is your possession. So experiment with using that for the others, for giving that away, for offering that out. Helping others, serving others, doing good deeds for the others. It's really a surefire way to increase happiness, to increase the sense of safety and resiliency in our mind. If we are busy just laying around, hanging around, our traumas get a hold of us. Our greed, our anger, our fear, our non-practical, complicated thinking, it takes its reign on us. But when we get to be busy and doing good deeds, it's not like that. There is a spaciousness, there is a blessing, there is a freedom that we get from doing good more and more, doing good deeds more and more. You can try for yourself to see about it, see if it works or not. When you go out of your way to help others, when you go out of your way to volunteer, to use your possessions, your time, your skills for the others, without it being transactional, how does it affect your mind? It will often take your mind to a deeper place. Some exhaustion, but also going to a deeper place within the mind. And so going through that dimension of depth, and you can really get tired, stay with the precepts, stay with the Dhamma, experience that as not someone, and keep going, keep practicing like that. Be with the Sangha. Take a deeper refuge in this path and this practice, and surely you will have some good success. Okay, we'll finish with the sharing of the merit. May all the merits that we have done till now be dedicated and shared out towards all beings. May all beings receive and rejoice in these merits. May it be, may it be, may it truly be. Maybe we'll finish with it's always nice to do some repentance. I'm a big fan, so we'll finish with that before our sadhus. Om ancient twisted karma, born of beginningless greed, hate, and delusion, formed of body, speech, and mind. I now fully atone. Om ancient twisted karma, formed of beginningless greed, hate, and delusion, born of body, speech, and mind. I now fully atone. Om ancient twisted karma, born of beginningless greed, hate, and delusion, formed of body, speech, and mind. I now fully atone. May the Buddhas, the Dharmas, and the Sangha share, care, and protect all beings near and far away. Sadhu. 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 That's all, folks.